moving sexual energy is our life force. It has to move in our system. This is not something that can be stagnant. We wither and die. We need to be moving it. The hormones, all of the scientific things about our body are very real, and we can't ignore them. So even if you're not sexually engaged, moving sexual energy is life-giving.
Welcome, tribe. I'm Mayah Rose.
And I'm Gerald Rogers. We're about to embark on another mind-expanding episode where we dive deep into the realms of psychedelics, sex, and the superconscious.
This is a transformational experience of healing, manifestation, increased clarity, flow, and alignment.
So join us on this sacred journey as we receive the codes of transformation from scientists and psychonauts, shamans, tantra masters, mystics, and more.
Together, we'll unravel the secrets of plant medicine, sex magic, and other tools to tap into higher states of consciousness.
So why are we here? To answer the call, to share our passions, and be advocates for alternative healing.
So get ready for a ride that transcends the ordinary and leads you to the extraordinary, because living a legendary life is not just a choice.
It's a sacred adventure.
I am beyond thrilled, full body tingles for this conversation today with Larry Michel. Larry is such a dear friend. Yeah, you're feeling it too. Such a dear friend. He's the steward of a program called Genetic Energetics. I mean, you've worked with every amazing thought leader in the industry and transformational leader, which has been so wonderful and amazing. And it's just such an honor to have you here. And what I love about you, Larry, is that you've done all this work. You've been with all these people in the world and helped them with their programs. And you've really come home to yourself on what matters the most to you and how to really use your gifts to help people the most in the world. And not only that, but you're such a dear friend. Like that, I just have to tell you, I remember this moment with Larry where I really feel like I got to drop in with him for the first time. It was of all things, it was like at a solar convention. We were sitting in back at the table, and we'd met at Burning Man, but we're sitting back at the table. And I just remember sitting by Larry and looking in his eyes, and I just felt so held, like this divine masculine radiating out, holding this safe space. And I didn't even know that you worked with couples and that you did the genetic energetics, which we'll talk about in a minute, but I felt it from you, and you walk the talk. So Larry's so excited to have you here. And I guess we should start. We should probably start by telling people what genetic energetics is, unless there's anything else you want beforehand.
Oh my God. And so there's a long story, there's a short story, and then there's an infinitely short story. So the shortest piece is genetic energetics is simply the oldest methodology for discovering who you really want to connect with and how to connect with them known to humankind. It sits at the core of our interaction with each other, and it identifies the energetic frequencies we vibrate at that are genetically coded. So they're with us all the time. They don't change. And there's huge benefits to that insight and huge understandings that come from all of it. And it's also a typology, so it comes with a warning: don't use me to project, right? In other words, when, like all typologies, whether it's human design or gene keys or Vedic astrology, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. They give us these titles, right? And I'm like an anti-label person. I don't like labels. Yet I have a typology that has a bunch of labels. That sounds like crazy making, but which can be, unless you realize that the whole purpose of this information is to help us understand people when something comes up, and not to project on people how they're going to behave or be before we encounter them.
Yeah, I love that. And what really first struck me is you offered to do this genetic energetics program with me and Gerald to run our genetic energetics. And really what the usefulness of it is to help understand your partner, how to communicate with them in a relationship. I mean, I guess you could run it for friends or people you're dating or whoever. But for me, as you sat down and you said, okay, here's these different markers, here's these different indicators on communication, on sex, sexual expression, on how you view money and finances. What was really interesting for me is I felt like the program was explaining better myself than I could explain. And I remember Gerald had this huge, oh, I get it, I understand. And same with me. And a lot of our things do align, but there were a couple of things that were different. And it helped me understand. For example, one of the things in genetic energetics talks about your energy, your activity level, right? And you can be either super active or moderate activity. You have super activity or moderate activity. And you can explain it much better than me. But from my perspective, it was like moderate activity is kind of like, a little bit slower pace, right? And the super activity is like go, 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 go. And I'm super activity and Gerald's moderate activity. And I was like thinking about the times in our marriage where I'm like, okay, come on, we got to do something. We got to do something. Why are we doing something right now? And he's like, slow down, enjoy the moment. And so just having that awareness gave us the understanding that we just run differently in that way. I can.
Yeah. And you're going, wait a second. I like the moment at this speed, right? It's like, this is my moment. This is good like this. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about what are some of the indicators in genetic energetics and why is this helpful for couples? And then I really want to get into the juicy sex part of it because it shows psychedelics, sex, and superconscious.
Yeah.
But maybe just go.
Yeah, we could go, we could spend a lot of time on all the indicators, but I can real quickly tell you that probably the first and foremost important is what we call communication style. And it's that there are just, for each one of these different, what we call pillars or the 4 different lifestyle traits, there's just 2 variations. So communication style, there's people that are figurative and people that are structural. And structural is me, you're listening to someone who's structural. I pick my words to mean exactly what I want to say. And when I listen to people, I'm going to interpret it kind of based on the dictionary definition of the word. The problem is that not everybody talks like that. And in fact, half the population is what we call figurative, and that, they are emotive. Not to say I don't have emotions, but it's like it's a conveyance of emotion is the communication. So the words are less important. Now, that could change if you're writing a book, right? Or you're an engineer or you're an intellectual property attorney or something like that. But in our normal way of communicating, it's like emotion. So if I talk without any emotions all the time, the figurative person is going to be bored. And the other is they're not going to know whether they were supposed to pay attention to me about anything because they don't hear an emotion. So, if I'm talking like this and I'm just describing things, I'm using my words and they're very explicit and they're important to me. And they're probably way the fuck too many words for a figurative person, but I'm talking. And then I stop and I go, Mayah Rose, come on, this is so important. And instantly she's like, oh, what was it that you wanted me to hear? And this isn't that one person listens any worse or any better than the other. It's just different. And to be really explicit about it, it's like there's 2 different languages.
I remember you. Yeah, I remember you coming to one of our events and teaching about this. And of course, I'm figurative. If you can tell, I'm super expressive. I'm like, literally, I'm going to die right now. And that's literally not the use of the word literal. So
yeah, and an orgasm is like not an orgasm. An orgasm, it's an orgasm. Right? It's different.
But I remember you.
Yes, you do that way better than I do.
You came to one of our events and you brought your daughter with you. And I remember she came and talked to me and we were talking about this with the different communication styles. And she's more like I am, the figurative and you're in the literal. And I remember you expressing how once you learned that you could communicate in a different way, in a way that could really be heard, that so impacted your relationship, and just, I remember you sharing a story of Beaver when she was a little girl and you'd be like, I love you. And she'd be like, what? You love me? Like it wasn't expressive. But then when you learned that she was free, you could be like, I love you. And she really heard it and received it. So yeah.
Then she knew. Before that, it was like just my lips were moving, but, is that really important? The thing that is probably the analogy that I love to use the most now, and it's actually what I end up doing with couples, I call it language class, right? When there's 2 different communication styles. And it would be like, let's say you and I are in a relationship together and you're from Switzerland, you speak Swiss or French, even pick your language, Italian, whatever language it is, right? And I'm from Germany and I speak German. So you come to see me in Germany and you're speaking your language, but expect all us Germans to understand you, right? And we don't, because we don't speak your language. And you're here in Germany with us. Would you please talk German if you can, or at least learn some of it, right? And you go, oh, I guess, if we're going to be in a relationship with each other, I should probably learn some German. And then I come to visit you and I go to speak German and everybody's going, they don't understand me. And then come on, speak whatever language, I speak Italian, speak Italian with me, right? And I go, I don't know how to. Well, do you love me? Do you want to have a relationship with me? Do do we want a close connection? Italian would be good for me, right? And the reality is that when people have the two different communication styles, not one language is better than the other, but we need to learn how to speak both. We do. I mean, you just wouldn't travel around the world and expect everybody to understand us if all you spoke was English. That would be crazy and even insulting in some situations, right? So, but when we're couples and we're with our friends and we're with people we really care about, and here we are expecting them to understand us fully, speaking the language we speak, and it's not theirs. No, it doesn't work. So we need to learn how to be multilingual. That's it. It's not hard. It's actually fun. It's really fun.
I love that so much. And I think, all this is based on your birthday, right? You just plug in the birthday. And then if you have your opposite gender parent's birthday, that's helpful too.
That gets us information about chemistry. So if you ever really wanted to truly understand chemistry and where it comes from and why it exists, the system is the only one that's actually scientifically proven to know it.
It's fascinating. And just as you were talking about learning these different communication styles too, I know that you've worked with a lot of couples on this. And what happens when they learn to communicate with each other within the chemistry of the relationship and within the intimacy level?
Oh, God. Well, it's a game changer. It's immediately now they have the tools to really understand and appreciate each other, right? And there's this tipping point where you think we should all be the same. And then we get to learn that we're different. We have lots of differences. And to expect us to change to be like the other is nonsense. It's just absolute, total nonsense. So what it means is that we need to discover who the other is, what the other is. Genetic energetics is a what, and be able to appreciate it. Just go, oh my God, what a great attribute. My daughter, Mayah Rose, I love you to death, right? And you are just like, how you communicate and how you express is joyful for me to hear, right? And it's not my style. And I can appreciate it totally. And if we're in deep conversation and there's a moment of, I'm not sure I understood what you said, or I got it. More often it's like, I got it. You don't need to say anymore. I got it. Then we have this ability to go, she does. Oh, this is awesome. This is cool. This is really cool. And so with couples who expect someone to understand them fully, and they have these experiences of, you don't listen to me. You must not care. You're not paying attention. I told you that. Why don't you know it? I told you that multiple times. Why aren't you listening? Anybody relate to any of that? That most of it's because of different communication style. It's not that they weren't listening. It's that we expected them to understand German when they don't speak German.
And I think that's one of the things that allowed me to feel so safe when we had that deep drop in conversation, was because I think this is common among women and among people in general, but especially, according to some of Alison Armstrong's work and other people in the industry, this is really important for women, is to feel seen and understood and heard. And because you were able to really understand my communication style, even though we were different, I felt seen and understood and heard, and just felt my whole soul surrender into the moment because I knew that I was being received. And I think that's so important. So, okay, so there's the communication style.
And it's totally possible for all of us. That's the thing. This is not difficult work. It sounds like it should be difficult, and it might be if you hold strongly onto your position, right? But anything is going to be difficult in your life if you hold on to things that tightly. Things you hold on to that tight, break. They just break. They disintegrate. They become something else other than we want. So we have to be flexible, and we have to be willing to see people. And hey, look at it. The heart of it, being seen, whether you're a man or a woman, being seen and heard, having someone reflect back to you who you know you are. Well, that's when you turn around and go, oh my God, I love you. I just love you. Why? Because we discovered you reminded us of the love within us. So being seen and heard is critical. It's foundational. It is the foundation of our connection with each other. Can't ignore that.
That's so beautifully said. And, I know there's some other indicators too. So we've got communication, we've got activity level, we've got the one that's about
finances, financial logic. And we have
sexual
sexual
responses. So I want to get more into those, especially when I want to land on the sexual response one. But before we do that, I'm really curious, Larry, and I don't think I've ever really heard the full story, because you have worked with some of the most well-known transformational leaders in the world. You have worked in the transformational industry for decades. You've learned a lot of these tools. And I'm just really curious, what called to you about the genetic energetics? I know you didn't create this program, but you are a steward of it. Why did this land with you? Why was this so meaningful? All the things you know and have studied and have learned and could be teaching about, why this
one? I was desperate, I guess I could say. It hit me at totally unexpected time. I was at the tail end of a 2-year-long relationship that I really, really, really wanted to work. Like at the beginning, it was delicious. It was wonderful. It was just like had all of those things at the beginning of a relationship for lots of us experience. And then over a period of time, things started to shift, specifically around sexuality, right? That was the big shift. And so I went looking for solutions. I got involved in Tantra. I got tantric certified. I got involved in all kinds of things that had to do with sexual expansion and understanding. I studied. I went to coaches. I had to go to a therapist. It was like, as a man, I was in the fix-it mode, right? That in itself is a big learning lesson. That I have a whole different posture on that today. But I wanted to fix it. I wanted this relationship to work, and it just wasn't. And I was at this one event, and at the last day of the event, I was minding my own business, by the way. When you were in relationships, when they're like troubled, everything is troubled around us, right? So, yeah, totally. Right. So I found this seat at the end of an aisle where the person next to me was the wall, right? And that was the best place. So the wall wasn't going to disturb me. And the person sitting next to me just was really a really wonderful lady that we're now friends today, which is great. But she mind her own business. So I grabbed my little cubbyhole and I was there for this 3 days. At the end of 3 days, the guy who's sitting at the end of this aisle, like 4 seats from me, that I had to squeeze behind and get past every day that I never paid any attention to, gets up in the front of the room and says, I can tell you something about your relationship that no one else has told you that will help you understand it. And of course I go, what? Because I've been spending the last year trying to figure it out in every way possible. And I went, okay. So that was the end of the program. So I meet with him out in the lobby and I go, do me, tell me, I want to know what you have to say. but he asked me for my birth date. And I'm going, astrology? No, I love astrology, but no, I've done that. It's like, no, it didn't give me the answers I wanted. I did big can of Western astrology. Like I'm telling you, I'm obsessed on trying to fix this. He says, it's not astrology. It's different. We're using birth dates, but it's completely different. I went, okay. So I get him the information. I get him the birth dates. I get him my ex-girlfriend, my soon-to-be ex-girlfriend's birth date and her father's birth date, my mom's birth date. He puts this all in. He goes into this big-ass book and he goes through this thing and he says, so here's what's going on. And then he proceeds to tell me about where the challenges were in the relationship, which were dead on accurate. But more important, Mayah Rose, he told me stuff about myself that didn't have anything to do with the relationship, but had everything to do with my belief about my capacity and capability and how I have navigated the decades of my life beforehand. And things that I shamed myself for, that I blamed myself for, that I felt less and insignificant around because of. And that was like, we might as well been sitting in a pitch black room. And he went, hold on a second, and go over to the corner and flip the light switch. And I went, it was that blatant. And you're right. I have like an LP certified hypnotherapist, NEC, done all these different things, studied psychology. That was my field. And when I went to the university, and still this piece of information was lightning specific and quick. So I just kind of went, wow, what are you doing with this? And he told me, and the gentleman who created it had passed away the year before. So this was created about 40 years ago now, and he had passed away. So I never got a chance to meet the man who came up with this. But I met his partner, and that was the gentleman I became partners with. And he just said, well, that's why I'm here. I need to learn how to market it. I don't want this thing to just, because the creator passed away, I don't want it to die. And so he had this huge passion about it. And I went, okay. So it was really accurate for me, but is it this accurate for everybody? Like if I turn around and go to my best friend and do this, are they going to go, Larry, you're full of shit? and he said, no. I mean, and I said, how do I know? He says, you're the marketing guy, study it. And so I did. And I spent 2 years interviewing couples, like over 1,000 couples. And it was never wrong, Mayah Rose. And it was, by the way, it was created, it was originally called Match Matrix. It was created to be a dating product to help people find their perfect match, right? That was the whole idea, that if you could be the same energetic formula, close to similar, like you and Gerald are, that, your chances are way better. And their belief is that if you're not, it's not going to work, which I know not to be true today, but that was the belief then. And so I just studied it and I interviewed people and it was never wrong. And so I went, okay, I'm in. I want part of this company. I want to do this. But what I discovered is it was way bigger than matchmaking. Way bigger than matchmaking. It's really all relationships. It's had impact in education. It's changed companies. It's created friendships. It's brought fathers and kids and mothers and their children back together. And it's helped people understand their relationships. That, so that's not just matchmaking. That's life.
Wow. There's so many.
So yeah, am I passionate about it? It's my Dharma path. There's nothing else I could do in life. There was a point in time when we had to convert this from a analog to a computerized system. And there were inaccuracies in it. And I'm going, oh my God, like, is this not reliable? And it was really a hard time for me because I was so deep in what its importance. And I went, but if it's not going to be accurate, I have to walk away from it. And ultimately we found out it was more accurate than we ever thought, which was great news, but it was a dark night of the soul. And I thought it wasn't going to be. Oof. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I love hearing how this path really found you. and what you've been doing with it. And I know you've helped thousands and thousands of couples be able to better understand each other. And what I like about what you said, it's always interesting because people ask me and Gerald, like, what's the secret for finding your perfect partner? How do you know they're the one? And I mean, obviously, if you're dating and you know this test, you could take it. You could see where you're compatible and where you aren't. But the real secret sauce is if you're entering into a relationship and the happiness or success of that relationship is based on your partner changing, then it's never going to be successful. And none of us are exactly the same. And what genetic energetics really is a tool to be able to say, okay, here's where we're different. Here's why. Let's create a greater understanding around this. So, yeah.
Let's embrace it. Like, let's embrace it. You know, you guys are, you know, it's sweet that you have the alignments that you have in genetic energetics, but there is so much more to what makes your relationship so spectacular. You know, your history, your experience, how you did that, your own personal work, the willingness to be vulnerable and authentic and just transparent with each other, and to also allow upheavals to be upheavals. Like, that was shit. What the fuck, right? And then go into it and resolve it. Know that you're that committed to each other, and you know, that's relating at its premium, and the place where every co-creation is a surprise. It's serendipitous. It's blissful. That's where we need to be in our relationships.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
And you guys do it. You do it.
Yeah, it's true. What you said about being in a relationship when things aren't aligned, nothing else it seems aligned in your life. You know, if you're happy in your relationship, then it affects every other area. So I really like that. Okay, so Larry, I want to get into this next part because
I mean, I'm all for it, Mayah Rose, because you know that this is the most potent piece in genetic energetics.
Here's why, in my personal belief, I'd love to hear your take on this too, because I feel like sexual connections that we have are both the result of and also the root of so many things. And it comes back and circles back to that sexual connection. And if we're having a positive sexual connection with our partners, then it impacts the other parts of our relationship positively. And if we're having positive communication and financial things and the activity, all these things, then it positively impacts the relationship that we're having in the bedroom. And as you know, sex and sex alchemy, from all your tantra studies and things, this is one of the most powerful ways to transmute the energy that we're feeling, to take something that we're feeling, you know, and trying not to label it good or bad, but whatever energy it is that we're feeling and moving it through our body. And when we can do that in partnership, that creates such an incredible energy. So let's talk about what the let's talk about the different kinds of sexual energy are. And of course, if you have anything to say about the importance of sexual connection, I'd love to hear that too. But let's dive into it.
Well, you know, people, there's so many things at the core in relationships. You know, there are relationships that are non-sexual and relationships are sexual, and sometimes that's by choice, sometimes it's by age, sometimes it's by physical conditions. But regardless of whether a couple are sexually active or not, moving sexual energy is our life force. It has to move in our system. This is not something that can be stagnant. We wither and die. We need to be moving it. The hormones, all of the, you know, scientific things about our body are very real, and we can't ignore them. So even if you're not sexually engaged, moving sexual energy is life-giving, right? So it's important. It's just critically important for our well-being and for how we interact with people and our creativity and all of this. There are lots of beliefs and lots of stigma and lots of contentions or assumptions about sexuality that are attached to the male or the female, and how a male engages sexually and what a man needs, and how a woman engages sexually and what a woman needs, that are really important in the discussion I have that come from genetic energetics. Because what it showed me is that across the board, most of the experts are 50% wrong.
Interesting.
Literally 50% of the time wrong. And sometimes this is a big deal. Sometimes it's not as big deal, but it's an inaccuracy. And the inaccuracy looks like this. Most people, including even our fun book here, right, have ideas that the masculine, and this is not this book's idea, but it's two separate considerations, that the masculine sources their sexual desires from their core, right? From their root chakra, from the sacral root chakra. And that the female sources her sexual desires from her head and her heart. And this has been held true for so long. And it's not true. It's half true. Half the women population do indeed source from their head and their heart. And it moves down through the Kundalini, and it moves down into the sacral chakras when the right connection's there, right? But it sources here. For the other 50% of the women, it's just the opposite. And those women know who they are because they'll hear someone say, you source it all from your heart. And they go, well, wait a second. When I'm hot, I'm hot. That doesn't have anything to do with my head and my heart. I want to engage sexually. What are you talking about? And so they feel kind of made wrong for that not being feminine. That's a travesty. And then there's men that indeed 50% of the men do source from their cock, if you will, right? It's like they're excited. They want sex. They don't need the head and heart connection. They like it. Absolutely love it. But it's not what drives them. And the sex follows. That's only half the men. The other half of the men source from their head and their heart. And they might be able to have a quickie, but it would never sustain a relationship. Not in a million years. It wouldn't. And they'll be in that relationship thinking, wow, we have sex every day. We're so active. We're like bunnies in heat. And they still feel unfulfilled. So that confusion has been destructive to so many relationships. Now, the good side is that people that have had that kind of difference have gone out looking for solutions, hence things like the erotic blueprints, which are fabulous, right? They really provide this great detail about how we do sex and a more, with more complexity and more kind of intricate understanding. But you know what drove that? A couple that had two different sexual response types. They needed to find the solution. The solution is we need to be able to move sexual energy. Physical sexual response type person, which is the one that sources from the core, their sexual energy is all held inside. It's held inside. It's contained within them until they either move it themselves through their own practices, or they find a partner that has the same frequency, the same energetic signature that literally has the key to their lock that opens the door and they go, they're out, right?
Right.
And it's true. It's like that. It's like, oh my God. It's like a Kundalini awakening, right? Because the Kundalini energy is moving. But if it's not moving for one and it's moving for the other, you got a problem.
I'm the physical one, right? I'm the one who holds it. Okay.
Yes, you are. Yeah. And so is Gerald, right? So you guys walk around, you don't just like can rub elbows and go,
Sometimes I'll just with my hand and I'm like, wow, I'm feeling the sexual energy moving my body.
Yeah. We're in the middle of a podcast. We'll come back. It's okay.
True.
So, which is delicious. It's wonderful, right? So what happens? I'll use you and me because I'm mental, emotional, sexual response type. I'm one of those guys who the prelude to sex is super important to me, romance, candles, music, the environment, all of these things are really they're essential to me. Now, like I said, I can have a quickie. That could be fun, but it won't sustain me. So here, my sexual energy is always moving. It's always on the surface. It's always available to me, which is wonderful on one end, very confusing on the other, because my sexual energy is on the surface. That means I can go up to someone to a woman and like curious who they are, and they feel my sexual energy and go, "Whoa, too much." And I go, "Too much? I'm just asking you a question. I'm just curious who you are." Now, women, it's even worse. So women who are mental emotional, we're all curious. We all want to know who people are and what situations are. And the thing is, the sexual energy is very visible and you can tell, you can feel it. Anybody can feel it on the surface. So here comes a woman up to talk to a man, and she's just curious. She wants to know who she is. She's talking to different people. He's looking at her and going, he's like seeing all this sexual energy. And then she asks a question about him, and he thinks immediately, "Oh my God, do we have something here?" And it's like, what? Like, I just wondered if that was your car out in the parking lot, right? What? What is going on here? And it feels invasive, and it's uncomfortable, and it's sometimes annoying and irritating. And so a lot of mental emotional women will dress very conservatively, thinking that they can conceal their sexuality. Doesn't work, by the way. Just absolutely doesn't work. Doesn't matter how they dress. It's still there. And even like they have all kinds of social challenges that come up. Their girlfriends don't want to go to bars with them because the men always go to them and won't talk to them. Or they take them to bars because they know that their mental emotional friend is already in a relationship. Let's take us with us because they're going to bring the men in, and then we get to talk with them. This things happen, Mayah Rose, and it's like, and every woman out there knows that experience, and so does every man. So what do we do, though, if you and I decide, wow, we want to be lovers, and we have two different sexual response types? My energy is moving, yours is not. I don't have the key to your lock like Gerald does, right? What do we do? Well, I've spent the last 17 years trying to find answers to that, because I had at the beginning someone say, "There's nothing you can do. Sorry, you can't do anything about it. You're out of luck. You're shit out of luck." And I went, "No, can't be that. Cannot be the answer." And I finally discovered that there is a way for us to be able to harmonize the frequencies we vibrate at. It's not instantaneous like it is with you and Gerald, but it's available to us, and it can be done. And when that harmony happens, when the frequency is the same, we hit the same note, if you will, then you have the similar experience. You get to move that sexual energy through each other and together. And that's where the beauty is. And that's the health giving piece. That's the piece that is like the revival moment. And it's possible. It's a huge deal to know that that's possible.
So if there's somebody that's listening in on this conversation, they're in a relationship and they feel like, well, first of all, I would say take your genetic energetics and find out for sure. But if they feel like there's not the sexual resonance there, and they have an idea, or they take genetic energetics and they're different, sexual energies, can you share just, I know we've only got a few more minutes, but I'd love if you could share just one little tidbit of what do you do to be able to build that resonance? What's the beginning of that?
Okay. So there's a few things. There's a few things that are really super easy and delicious. And then finding the note takes a little bit more work, because that really takes it takes some practice. It's like trying to teach someone to meditate that's never meditated before. We have to sit through it, work through it until we find it, and then we've got it. But the other two that are really beautiful, that are so easy to do, three actually. One is breathing. Synchronize your breathing. synchronize your breathing. It's so simple. Breath in itself is so undervalued, and it is the most valuable thing we have, right? Our life force exists because we're breathing. So breath is important. And when we synchronize our breathing with someone, that piece does something to the body that is really magical. And I mean, it can be so simple. You could be laying in bed with your beloved and cuddling, and you don't even have to say, let's synchronize our breathing together. Let's do that now. You don't have to do that. You could just simply breathe with them. Just breathe with them. Lay, if you're spooning, it's the best way, right?
Exactly.
And just breathe with them. Don't have any expectations. Don't do that. Avoid that. Come in ready for anything to happen and just breathe. And I guarantee you, it's not going to be long before someone reaches around and pulls you closer, right? Wants to feel you more. And by feel, you can use your imagination there, right? And it's just, so that synchronized breathing is beautiful. That by itself is important. If your breathing is not in sync, it's going to be a challenge. So it's not just important; it's super
and this
valuable.
is valuable for people that are the same, sex expressions.
Yes.
Thinking of breathing is amazing.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Yes. So thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, this isn't just if you're different. Do it. Just do it. The other is, and this one is a little bit more challenging for people because they don't do it very often, but it's actually eye gazing, looking into someone's eyes, not looking for someone to give you an explanation for something or not after anything in particular, but allowing yourself to gaze into your partner's eyes and just hold that gaze. Allow whatever comes up to come up. You are going to discover things that you never knew, never thought you knew. I've seen people, we do this at your events, right? You have people that don't know each other that spend 30 seconds to just a minute. And a minute can seem like forever long, eye gazing, right? But a minute gazing into someone's eyes and then turn around and say, tell them what you know about them. As if, how the hell would I know anything? We never talked, right? But in that 60 seconds, there's more knowing if you just allow it to come up than you can imagine. You turn around, well, when I saw someone, wow, you're really mischievous and creative too. And the person turns around and goes, well, yeah, I'm an artist and I love creating things that are disruptive, right? It's like, how did you know that? That is like, it seems like, did you read my mind? Did someone read the dossier beforehand? How did that happen? Right? It's so off target for me to go down that path, but just eye gazing is really beautiful. And if you can hold that contact for 5 minutes, the depth that you go is magical. And if you can hold it longer, however you wish to hold it and be there, you just go deeper and deeper, and the connection becomes one that's energetic and frequencies begin to match and you harmonize. And if you're synchronizing your breathing at the same time.
Well, huge. And if you want to kick it up a notch, I'm still working on this because this gets too intense for me, who can handle a lot in the bedroom, but breathing and eye gazing while making love, that's like a whole another level. Sometimes I'm like, turn my eyes. I can't do it. But it just
you're going to shoot out of your body. You'll shoot out of your body, and you're not making love in your body anymore. Yeah. You're up here in the heavens someplace, right? And sometimes you can have the experience of looking down and go, look at those two.
I will have a cosmic orgasm if that happens. But yeah, Larry, this has been so beautiful. And our time has come to a close. But I would love, I know I've talked with you forever. May have to do another episode. But I would love for you to share, how can somebody find out what their genetic energetics is? What website do they go to? How do they get the report? How do they understand the report? Like, what are the next steps? Because this is something that I think is a game changer in all relationships.
Oh, thank you. Do we have a way of putting a link in when people watch your podcast? Do they see that? Or because I will get it for you. I will give you the link, or I can get it for you now if you want.
Yeah,
you
just
tell
send
me
it
what's
to me.
best.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay, great. So you're going to get a link. It's going to take you to a page. I just messaged it to you. This is going to take you to a page on the website that asks you to create a new account. We'll ask you to create a new account. So create an account. You're going to get this thing called an OTP. It's just for security purposes, but create a password. And then you go back in there and run a profile on yourself. And the profile is free. It's like, this is our gift to the world. There's what we're going towards the 4 million mark now in terms of people that have run this profile. So please just do it, even if it's just entertaining. And so you're going to get a free report. That's you. It's going to tell you, you only need 2 pieces of information. Your birth date. You can't lie, by the way, your real birth date. No one else is going to know it. It doesn't show up printed on the report. You don't have to worry about that. But it's going to also ask you for your opposite gender biological parent's birth date. So for a man, it's the mother, biological mother. For a woman, it's the biological father. If you don't have it, it's okay. Run the report anyhow. That one additional piece just deals with chemistry, which is a whole other show, right? But it's a valuable piece to know. It's going to let you know when you're drugged up or not. So if you can get it, great. If you can't, you're going to get all the information you need except for that piece, and it will be plenty. The report will tell you about yourself. You can go deeper if you want. You can go back and run a friend or an ex-lover or a business partner or a family member or the man or woman that you're most interested in right now. And again, please use this to understand the relationship, not to project. I can't overemphasize that, right? With future of this world is going to be our ability to be in the surprise, to discover what's happening to us when it's happening and not try and control it. So this is so important. Anyhow, the report's there. If you want more information, you can email me directly. You can email the email where the report came in and, send a message to Larry. I'll get it. We have a team of people that can support you. I work with couples all over the planet and single people as well, but mostly couples. And we're here. We're here to support you in having the most phenomenal connections that you can possibly have with the people that are important to you in your life. That's it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Larry. Very beautifully said, beautifully spoken. Thank you so much for who you are, for following your passion, calling, for doing this work, for helping couples understand each other. It's so important. And thank you for your time today. I love you so much. And for all of you listening.
Yes, thank you. It's such an honor
I love it. All of you listening, check out the show notes, get the link, run your genetic energetics, and sending you all with a lot of love.
Thank you, legendary explorers, for joining us on this cosmic journey today.
Your curiosity fuels our exploration of psychedelics, sex, and the superconscious.
If you're hungry for more, dive into our website and connect with us on social media. All the links are in the show notes.
And stay tuned for our next mind-expanding episode. We can't wait to talk to you again in our next adventure.
Until then, remember, this is your life. So,
make it legendary.